By the time my ex-husband's mother called me, the sun was high over the city, bright enough to make every window shine like nothing bad had ever happened behind them. I almost didn't answer. Her name on my phone felt like a hand reaching out from a grave I had spent 2 years trying not to visit. But when I heard her voice trembling through the speaker, soft and tired, asking me to come to dinner because there was something I deserved to know, my heart went cold before I even said yes. Before we begin, if you believe kindness still matters, if you believe second chances can heal even the deepest wounds, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your support helps stories like this reach someone who may be quietly carrying the same pain. My name is Marisol Vale, and for 2 years, I believed my marriage ended because I was not enough. Not patient enough. Not beautiful enough. Not exciting enough for my husband, Cashin Rowe, who had once looked at me like I was the first sunrise after a lifetime of rain. We were married for 5 years, and in those years, I built my life around him with the gentle faith of someone who thought love was a house, something you repaired after storms instead of abandoning. But in the final year, Cashin changed. He came home late with silence on his shoulders. He stopped noticing the meals I cooked, the dress I wore on our anniversary, the way I cried quietly in the bathroom with the water running. Then one morning, in the flat gray light of our kitchen, he told me he wanted a divorce. He said he had fallen out of love. He said it like he was returning a borrowed coat. After the divorce, I moved into a small apartment above a bakery on Alder Street, where the scent of warm bread rose through the floorboards every morning and made loneliness feel almost survivable. I worked at a children's library, smiling through story hour while my own story felt torn in half. People told me I was strong, but they never saw me sitting on the edge of my bed at noon on Sundays, still wearing yesterday's sweater, staring at old wedding photos until my eyes burned. I carried the shame of being left like a stain no soap could remove. I told myself Cashin had chosen freedom because life with me had become too heavy. His mother, Evadne Rowe, had always been kind to me. She was a quiet woman with silver hair, garden hands, and eyes that seemed to notice pain before it was spoken. After the divorce, she sent one message on my birthday, just 3 words, "I am so sorry." I never replied. Not because I hated her, but because loving anyone connected to Cashin felt like standing too close to a fire. So when I arrived at her house that afternoon, with daylight falling golden across the porch and the smell of roasted chicken drifting from the kitchen, I felt like I had walked into a memory wearing the wrong life. The dining room was exactly as I remembered it, with pale curtains, blue plates, and the old clock that ticked too loudly between heartbeats. Evadne hugged me longer than expected. She felt smaller than before. Her bones pressed through her cardigan, and when she pulled away, there were tears already waiting in her eyes. We ate mostly in silence. I tried to ask polite questions, but every answer faded quickly. Her hands shook when she poured tea. Mine shook when I lifted it. Outside, children rode bicycles past the front window, laughing in the careless brightness of day, and I wondered how the world could remain so ordinary when something inside that room felt ready to break. At last, Evadne folded her napkin, placed it beside her plate, and whispered that Cashin had lied to me. Not once. Not in some small, forgivable way. He had lied about why he left. The room tilted. I could hear the clock, the distant hum of traffic, the tiny crackle of the candle burning between us. Evadne told me that in the last year of our marriage, Cashin's business had collapsed under debts he had hidden from everyone. He had borrowed money from dangerous men, forged signatures, and made choices that could have destroyed my future too. When they threatened to come after his family, he panicked. He believed the only way to protect me was to make me hate him enough to let him go. I stared at her, unable to breathe properly. All those nights I had blamed myself, he had been drowning in secrets. All those mornings I had reached for him and found only distance, he had been building a wall between us because he thought it was shelter. Evadne's voice cracked as she told me Cashin had begged her not to tell me. He had wanted me free from his ruin. He had wanted me angry instead of afraid. And then she said the words that cut deepest: he had never stopped loving me. For a moment, I felt nothing. Then everything came at once. Anger rose first, hot and violent. How dare he decide my life without me? How dare he turn love into a locked room and leave me outside with the blame? Then grief came, heavy as rain. I remembered his face during those final months, the way his smile looked bruised, the way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. I had mistaken agony for indifference. I had mistaken sacrifice for cruelty. Evadne reached across the table and placed a small wooden box in front of me. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, all addressed to me, none sent. Cashin had written them after the divorce. Some were stained, some folded unevenly, some only half a page. I opened one with trembling fingers. His handwriting was familiar enough to hurt. He wrote that every day without me felt like walking through a house where every room had lost its light. He wrote that he hoped I would one day find someone who made me feel safe, because he had failed at the one thing he wanted most. He wrote that leaving me was not freedom, but punishment. I read until the words blurred. Evadne told me Cashin had paid back what he owed after selling everything, including his share of the company. He had moved to a coastal town 3 hours away and taken a job repairing boats. He was not doing well, she said. Not because he wanted pity, but because guilt had become the only home he allowed himself. She had invited me because she was ill, because time had become honest with her, and because she could no longer carry a truth that belonged to me. I left her house near sunset, though the story had begun in full daylight, and the sky still held a soft orange glow over the rooftops. I sat in my car with the box of letters on my lap, feeling as if my entire past had been rewritten by someone else's hand. I did not know whether I wanted to scream, forgive, or disappear. For 2 years, I had survived by turning Cashin into the villain of my story. Now I had to face something more complicated, and far more painful. He had hurt me deeply, yes. But he had done it while trying, in his broken way, to save me. The next morning, I woke before sunrise, but I waited until the city was fully awake before making my decision. By 10, sunlight filled my apartment, bright and undeniable. I called in sick to the library, packed the letters into my canvas bag, and drove toward the coast. The highway unrolled beneath a clear daytime sky, fields flashing green on either side, clouds drifting like torn cotton above the hills. With every mile, my anger changed shape. It did not vanish. It became questions. Why didn't you trust me? Why did you think love meant carrying pain alone? Why did you let me believe I was unwanted? I found Cashin at a boatyard near the water, wearing faded jeans and a gray shirt, his hair longer, his face thinner. He was sanding the side of a small fishing boat when he saw me. The tool stopped in his hand. For several seconds, neither of us moved. The air smelled of salt, varnish, and sun-warmed wood. Seagulls cried overhead. He looked like a man seeing both a miracle and a sentence. I did not run to him. Life is not that simple. I walked slowly, carrying the box. When I placed it on the ground between us, his face broke before he said a word. I told him I knew. I told him his mother had told me everything. And then, with a calmness that surprised even me, I told him the truth he had never allowed himself to hear: he had no right to destroy my heart in the name of protecting it. Cashin cried then, openly, without pride. He said he was ashamed. He said he thought if I knew the danger, I would stay, and he loved me too much to let my loyalty bury me beside him. He said he had been a coward dressed as a martyr. Those words stayed with me because they were true. Love without trust is not sacrifice. It is control wearing a halo. We sat on an overturned boat under the bright afternoon sun, two people surrounded by water and wreckage, trying to understand whether something broken could become something honest. I did not forgive him that day. Forgiveness is not a door you open because someone knocks. It is a road, and sometimes you walk it limping. But I listened. And for the first time in years, he listened too, not to defend himself, not to explain away my pain, but to receive it. In the weeks that followed, we did not rush back into love. We wrote emails. We met for coffee in public places. We spoke about debt, fear, shame, therapy, loneliness, and the terrible damage caused by silence. Evadne passed away quietly that autumn, with both of us beside her bed. Before she died, she squeezed my hand and told me that truth can arrive late and still be holy. I never forgot that. A year later, Cashin and I were not remarried. We were not pretending the past had become beautiful just because we understood it better. But we were healing. Slowly. Honestly. He had begun counseling. I had begun trusting my own worth again. Sometimes we walked along the pier in the afternoon, sunlight glittering on the water, and we talked like two people learning a new language made of patience. Near the end, I want to ask you gently, if this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Sometimes one story reaches the person who is about to give up on love, forgiveness, or themselves. Special request: comment kindness deserves a second chance if you believe healing is still possible after heartbreak. Looking back now, I know my marriage did not end because I was not enough. It ended because fear entered our home and convinced the man I loved that silence was safer than truth. But truth, even late truth, has a way of opening windows in rooms we thought were sealed forever. Cashin and I did not get our old life back. Maybe no one ever does. What we found was something quieter, humbler, and stronger. We found the courage to stop protecting each other with lies and start loving each other with honesty. And sometimes, when the afternoon light falls across the kitchen and the kettle begins to sing, I think of Evadne's trembling hands, that dinner table, and the box of letters that changed everything. I think some invitations are not meant to bring us back to the past. They are meant to lead us, finally, into the truth.